Welcome to the Quick Stop F1 podcast. My name is Nyasha, and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. Joining me today is someone who, if we're talking about business and strategy in F1, then this is the person to go to. Let me see if I've got the sound effects. Hold on. I don't have the sound effects. I really wanted to give you a massive introduction. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Do you like that? Yeah.
I love
that. Joining me today is none other than Abby Rakshit. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so
much. Let me
much.
get you the clapping.
And
hold on.
I love that you.
Get some cheering. There you go.
I love that you did not ask me how to pronounce my last name, and you got that right anyway. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was not going to lie to you. As I was doing the intro, I was like, I didn't actually ask how to pronounce it. So
no, you got that completely correct. So you deserve a clap for that.
Thank you. You know what? I never get claps. So you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Clap for me. Finally. It's crazy. 3 years of giving out other people's applause. I appreciate that. Abby, how are you today? How's it going?
It's going great. It's Monday here in Austin, Texas. It's very rainy here today. I don't know why I started with the weather. I think that's always makes people easy to get into a conversation.
Yeah, look, I'm British. We love that shit. So we'll talk about the weather. Oh my God, I'm in my bag right now. So I actually read somewhere that there's going to be tennis ball hail in Texas. I don't know if you've seen that before.
It was there. We've been hearing about that hail for a bit. We haven't seen it yet. It was just come today. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, make sure you stay super safe in there. And look, before we can remember, for you guys at home, if you're watching, make sure to give us a like and subscribe on this video. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star review. If you're on Apple, make sure to leave a rating. And the Patreon's there for an ad-free stream. Abby, I was on, I don't even know how I came across one of your podcast episodes, but I think it kind of came up as a recommendation on Spotify.
Oh my God, Spotify's recommending me? That's great.
I know. Yeah, I know, right? And I'm super into, I guess, the business side of anything. So I love the business side of football. I watch a lot of football, of sport in general, but especially F1. And it was a really cool episode. And I guess I wanted to really kind of get into that with you. But I guess before we get into that, I guess we ask all new people who come into the show, and especially, I guess, those from some of the areas where F1 has kind of been blowing up the way it is. How did you get into F1?
Oh, I got into F1 because of my first job. And I'm an old IndyCar girl. I started in racing as a fan because I used to be an industrial engineer for this company called Cummins out in the Midwest, right in the home in my first American home state of Indiana. And I used to go drinking with my friends at something that Indy 500 calls the Snake Pit. It's a big party in the middle of the racetrack. And most people there have no clue what racing is. And it's gone on for almost 50 years. So if you want to talk about racing fans for entertainment, that's how I got into the sport. And I remember one of my early years, I think Fernando was racing in the first time he was racing in Indy 500. And there was a bigger buzz that year. Everybody kept talking about, this Formula One driver's coming. This is going to be a bigger deal this year. And of course, I did see him, I think it was 26 laps before the end of the race. He did not make it. I remember hating the partying side of it. Sat down on the top of the hill and just saw the cars go by really fast. And it was like a moment in my brain because I was working with a lot of these part manufacturers behind the scenes. And I saw these cars go very quickly. So having worked in auto, my first job was in auto. I've worked in automotive for over a decade of my career. That's how I came into racing.
Nice, man. That's awesome. And it's I guess so. It's quite interesting. You mentioned the snake pit and I guess that entertainment
Yeah.
side of things because F1 I feel especially in this grab and push for America that
Mm,
they've gone on, some people have said that have they prioritized the show over the racing, and
mm,
especially with such a European market, a little bit uptight,
mm,
a little bit less into the show, the
mm,
razzmatazz that the F1 trying to bring in. I think we saw in Austin, maybe in, I want to say 2018, maybe, when they had Michael Buffer come and do the announcements, and
mm.
everyone was like, whoa, stop that.
I
But then
remember,
obviously
I
they,
think, was it 18 or 19? I don't remember.
maybe it was around that time,
Yeah.
right?
And 17, I think I was not a Formula One fan back then. It was Taylor Swift, I think. 17 was Taylor Swift in Austin.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And now we can't, I don't think, at this sport we can afford her.
No,
But
I
there's
think
no way.
that's settled.
But 19, I remember actually. So I had moved from Indianapolis to Austin. Drive to
Mm,
Survive had already been out there for 2 years, and people were talking to me about this. I'm like, I know all about
yeah.
racing. What are TV show gonna tell me about this? I know this,
Yeah.
right? And I remember I was like, this is the year Lewis is about to challenge and get very close to, and I think he did ended up winning the championship race
He
almost
did.
in like 19, and like it was Mexico technically, but like
Yeah.
he had made up that gap that year. But I know nobody wanted to go that year with me. I used to work, I used to lead the
Wow.
global fleet strategy at Lyft, the rideshare firm at that time. And I went around in my office. I'm like, guys, do you want to go to the Formula One race?
Wow.
And people were like, what? That's weird. No. Uh, and so I remember I sat at turn 12. I bought a ticket off of Craigslist for $120. Back alley
Wow.
deal. Yeah. It was a $450 ticket, but somebody had 2 extra tickets to sell for that
Yeah.
Sunday, and they
They're
sold
just
it
trying
to
to get rid of
me.
him.
And no, I got it for $100 because I know I bought those 2 tickets for 220 and I sold one of them
Mm.
for 120. I remember doing that.
Wow. Business.
Business, right? And then I ended up getting in an Uber by myself. And I remember even coming out and going in. It was such a peaceful getting in and getting out.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It was so peaceful. And I'm like, I kind of
Wow.
like this Formula One sport. It's not as crazy as Indy 500. I didn't have to like get 5 hours early and sit on the
Mm.
track because everybody keeps talking about the transportation problems. If you ever try to go to Indy 500 starts around 2 p.m. You have to leave your home at 8 a.m., even if you're in a
Wow.
20-mile
Really?
radius. You're not going to get into closer to the track by midday. You're going to be sitting on the road.
Really?
Yeah, it's part of the journey. And so
Part of the
it's
fun.
part of the fun. Everybody has done that for ages, so nobody
Yeah.
questions that. But in F1, I was like, whoa, this is nice. I can get an Uber in and out from my front door to there for $30 and come back. I remember being so peaceful. But then this completely suddenly COVID happens, and I started podcasting around 2021. It's been 3 years as well, around the same time because everybody wanted to know a lot about racing. And I'm like, well, I've known this sport inside out from a really long time. Why don't I talk about it a little bit more? And we've stayed niche to the business and the dealings behind the
Yeah.
sport. But when you talk about your question, right, around this growth that we've had as an entertainment, I go back to one statement only. Sports is entertainment. Why else are
There
you
you
watching a
go.
sport?
Let's give you a little fun facts for that. Um, why else are you watching sport? And I think this is the thing, right? Where I think this is one of the things that we kind of not struggle with, but we have with people who kind of who watch F1 content, right? And a lot of F1 content can be very informative, very like down the middle and whatever. But I guess with Formula One, I do feel like it's still growing in that accepting it's more than an engineering series, it's more than a,
Mm-hmm.
a pure racing series. It is, the
Mm-hmm.
sport is a business and there is entertainment. Look, there should be entertainment in the sport. We should be seeing close wheel to wheel racing. And I think I saw a
Mm-hmm.
tweet earlier, a random tweet earlier, where someone was like, I love F1, but I've watched 2, 3 other series of racing today and had infinitely more fun watching
Yeah.
these series than I do watching F1 every other weekend, So I do think the entertainment factor, they're really having to force feed it to F1 fans. And I think it's
Mm.
slowly but surely it is catching on, but I feel like it's not a fight that's been easy. And I think, I think there is a bit of a taboo around the word sports entertainment. Obviously, not wrestling, but like sports. That marriage of hand in hand of sports and entertainment. And I guess so. How does Austin compare? I mean, we were at Austin last year, so I guess I've got a I guess some kind of knowledge, but I mean, for me, when we were at Austin, um, I think what really took me aback was the the area where there was all of like the merch for sale, and there was like
Mm-hmm.
the arcade kind of sim racing thing, and then there was the concerts, and there was all of this. Yeah, and it was such a vast space, and there was all of these kind of little entertainment and bar areas. I guess it felt, and also I just the crowd felt, it was a sellout again. The crowd felt super eclectic. But I guess in your time, how would you describe that growth of F1 in America? Like and I guess I know how Europeans feel about F1's attempts to break America, but I guess how have you found it over the years with F1 in America? And I guess the efforts F1 have made to try and get that American market.
I will tell you it's night and day. I will tell you before this Drive to Survive growth, because Drive to Survive came on in 2018, early 2019.
Yeah,
None of my friends were watching it, nothing was happening. And suddenly it is 2020 and 2021. It's the end of like the
yeah,
second season's out, third season's about to come on. That's where the inflection point really happened. And
yeah.
since
Like
then, I've
COVID hit,
been
right?
to Austin 4 times or 5 total. I've been to Vegas. I just came back from Miami. And it's a
Yeah,
completely different environment. And the entertainment part, and I've been thinking about this for a very long time, right? And sports is community, sports is entertainment, but also, like you said, the online product versus the offline product. There are
yeah,
two different things. What you get to
yeah,
watch on the racetrack and what you're experiencing there in person are two different products that necessarily shouldn't be
yeah.
looked at from the same lens. They
That's a very
are,
good point. Yeah,
and what I
I definitely felt
think,
that.
because Miami, we've heard about this, right? This parking lot race. And like, I've been a huge, I didn't want to go to Miami until now.
Yeah,
And there was an opportunity. So I went, but like, there was nothing that
yeah,
was calling me to Miami. However, the
yeah,
moment I was in, when I got to Miami, I was like, whoa, this is so much nicer than Austin. If you thought Austin was a party, Miami is like a 10x version of it. And you got the
yeah,
value for it. I don't think on a campus pass anywhere, you're getting like a champagne garden. You can go just buy champagne, free fans, and a Glenfiddich activation. Like you don't see any of that in any other
yeah.
racetracks.
Very true.
However, I had no clue how the racing was going until like that Sunday where everybody just was watching the race because you're
Wow.
meeting with
So is
brands,
it
you're
that
meeting with
far
hospitals.
removed?
I don't necessarily, because I was also taking a lot of work meetings. For me,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit, and I should probably talk a little bit more about what I do for a living, but
Yeah.
I was taking work meetings. I was in academy hospitality. Academy hospitality is a little bit removed, and we should talk about why F1 Academy is still not getting the same treatment, and that's a whole other problem in itself. However,
Yeah.
I think even when it happens in Austin, right? Austin doesn't do a great job of making sure the speakers are there at every turn. And if the speakers aren't there,
Yep.
sometimes even with turn 9, I've sat on turn 9 before. Was that 2022? I think it was 21. I've sat on turn 9 and 10 before, and you hear nothing. Turn 12 is a really good, by the way, place to sit at and listen to. The start and end area where the High Line or like the all the amusement park stuff is, that usually you can
Yeah.
hear things well. But there's a lot of spots in Austin where you can't hear it properly. So if you're not hearing it
No,
properly,
no.
you don't know the time charts,
Oh,
you
mate.
can't keep track.
It was really hard. Like I mean, I remember in Austin having the radio, and then like halfway through the session, I just started getting like some kind of church channel in my ear whilst I was trying to watch qualifying, and I was like this, and I'm like on my little thing, I can't get it to go. Also, the screen, you could only see the timing up to like one decimal point, and then obviously we had three drivers all within like a tenth, hundredth of each other,
Mm-hmm.
or hundredths of each other, and like I couldn't tell what the time was. So that was like, oh, like, and I think we were on the start finish straight at that point, so I was like, this must be two of the best screens that you've got here, and I can't differentiate. And I think the whole thing about, and I think that's the thing about, I can see the appeal, like having been to Austin now and then being at
Mm,
home and watching Miami. I can now, before, I think I was the same. I was like, I did not want to go to Miami. I was like, Miami's not for me. I
mm,
don't really think that I would enjoy Miami. I'm not really up for like what I felt was like, a contrived experience, let
mm.
me say. But having been to Austin and now knowing that the products that I sit at home and watch is completely different to what I would experience being in a
Yeah.
racetrack during a Formula One race. Why wouldn't you want to go somewhere where you're getting the most bang for your buck, I guess, and there's as much on offer for you to experience, almost as if like you're at a 3-day festival, essentially.
It was
Um,
exactly a
why
3-day
wouldn't
festival. That's what I
why
was going
wouldn't
to
you want that?
say. Yeah. And it was exactly a 3-day festival. It is basically Disneyland for adults. It was,
Yeah,
the
nice.
alcohol was flowing, the food was there. You could you could not spend that much. I snuck in protein bars and liquid IV packs. Like, I'm not above it. So I saved my money where I wanted to. You could bring an
Yeah,
empty water bottle. So you could plan it and just plan to have one meal a day there and it all be still be kind of affordable. And there's a lot more bang
yeah,
for your buck, like I'm saying. And back to your point of like the online versus the offline product,
yeah,
I don't think I enjoy the offline product of after going okay to Austin 6 or 5 times now. I'm
yeah.
very much, last year I was invited by Aston Martin to watch it from their hospitality, and it was so much better. I had AC and I was watching it inside on a TV. I was like, okay, very much. I
It's
don't
so
want to.
warm. It's
So
boiling in
hot
Austin.
all the time.
Like,
It is
it's so
so
hot.
hot
I've
all
never
the
been that
time.
hot. Yeah, no, I can imagine that having it with the AC is a lot better option. I've honestly, like, we were lucky that we got into the grandstand. Essentially, won't say how, but let's just say we got in there, and
Wonderful.
that compared to like, pardon.
No,
Oh no, I
wonderful. I
was just
said
saying, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, no, yeah, 100% wonderful. Oh my god, because that compared to was sitting on the bank at the end of like the back straight or whatever, and just sitting on that hill with the sun in your face for like the whole day. I was like, that is actually like, honestly, I felt like I was on Survivor or something. It was so hot. So I can definitely imagine the experience again. But again, that's I guess, when you're able to get those experiences, then why not? I guess,
Hmm.
having said all that, then, Abby, it's like, did you get a sense? I think there were some worries that with Vegas coming onto the calendar,
Hmm.
that would that kind of take Miami's place, right? Why would you kind of have these two extremes of
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
Vegas, all of the pomp and glamour and, the expensive tickets and the expensive accommodation, and all of that. And then you've got Austin, which I guess is the racers place. And, you've got cheaper GA tickets. And I guess it's got more history with F1, obviously, than Vegas. And so I guess there were some questions of where does Miami sit within that. So I guess having just been just now, and Miami by all kind of measures was a success in terms of like television figures and the actual race itself. And I haven't seen around attendance, but I guess, where does Miami sit? And I guess, was it a success this year from someone who was on the ground? And did you
I
see
think
progress
so.
from the
I think it
first two
was
years?
completely a success because even after Orlando won, we were on the track till 7 p.m., which is almost 1.5 hours after the podium. And people still
Mm.
didn't want to leave. It was Cinco de Mayo. People were partying it up on the track, which
Yeah,
is
of
really rare to see
course.
in Austin.
Yeah, no.
They very much lucked out. Hospitalities were completely full. And going back to your question of whether Vegas or Miami, I think it really depends on promoters' efficiency and
Okay.
how which promoter in the end ends up winning. You are fighting for almost like the same money, let's call it that, right?
Yeah,
But it's also in two completely different parts of the country.
very true.
There are a very different, it's still the same demographic. And we think because we see the same influencers on TV or online, oh, it's the same group of people. It's actually not.
Mm.
You wouldn't, there's just that's very small, like the media bubble we live in, right? I
Yeah.
do think Vegas, I enjoyed Vegas more because I watched it from one of the casinos. I had no tickets to
Wow.
Vegas last year.
Oh, okay.
And the entire, uh, like the main casino, the Win, had Crofty's voice going through the entire casino. So you're walking around,
Wow.
you could have a drink in the lifetime. Every screen, the amount of screens that Vegas has, they take over every screen you can have in a hotel.
Wow.
So it's like being in
That's
hospitality without actually
insane,
having
Abby.
to pay. And I don't know if the
Yeah.
on-track experience is the same. So I think the product on like offline, on ground product is different enough, but I still question. I do question if 3 years from now, this
Mm.
plateau continues. There is a plateau. We're starting to see that already, right? Like that growth, those
Yeah.
numbers. But
Yeah.
the fact that Vegas is owned by F1, they've put so much money behind that location. And
Yeah.
here, Miami Dolphins is a whole different money that's promoting this. And they
Yeah.
do so many different things, right? They do the Miami Open, they do Miami Dolphins, they're an event management powerhouse and they know how to like divide up their
Yeah.
costs between all these things. I think it stays on the calendar because I didn't see the demand going down at any point. It's just that the on track racing has to look really, like you said, you have to keep finding Miami and Vegas both equally interesting, all these three races,
Yeah.
because even if the online product isn't working, that's enough for you to start going in that negative, or let's say down
Yeah.
that growth curve.
Yeah. And I think, I think for me, I feel like F1 is at a really interesting point. Or has
Mm-hmm.
been at a really interesting point for a couple of years now, in that they almost lucked into Drive to Survive, right? You know, we had this like perfect storm of the fact that Mercedes and Ferrari refused to go on the first couple of seasons, so they focused on these other characters, and it almost made them create a
Mm,
show which focused on smaller stories, and that's really what kind of brought people to attention. And you know, Daniel Ricciardo therefore becoming a star in his own
mm,
right, and Gunter Steiner, like
mm,
if you'd said they're making an F1 documentary, sure, Daniel Ricciardo would have been top of your list of people who will probably come out well. Gunter Steiner, you'd have never thought he'd have the reaction he had, and you know, which was obviously great for him and great for Haas. But you have that. You then have COVID. Everyone's in their house. They're watching Drive to Survive. It gains popularity. You know, that helps. And then obviously, F1 is the first thing, the first sport to come back during COVID. So you have all these people who've just been watching Drive to Survive, and then bang, you're into racing. You're pretty much the only live sport on for a while. So it had this growth, and then you have 2021, which is the greatest F1 season of all time. Take apart the end, whatever, but you know, it was incredible.
mm. It was. It was.
It was incredible, right? It was incredible. So having said all that, it feels like they've kind of been riding the coattails of a bunch of stuff that they didn't really mean to do, and I guess now it'll be interesting to see what's. I guess I'll ask one thing: do you think that Drive to Survive will continue to have the same kind of effect that F1 wanted to have in that luring of new fans into the sport? And I guess how do they keep up? How do they keep up this interest in their American races? They're not cheap, you know. So I guess they have to keep an interest somehow
Mm.
to keep people going, especially if the racing isn't as great. Although Miami was you know, the best race of the season so far.
Yeah. So I'll take a step back there, and I would say I would completely agree with you that it was a perfect storm. You cannot replicate that same formula for a different sport. It's not going to yield the same results that COVID plus Drive to Survive and everything. It was a perfect storm,
Yeah,
like you said. But I wouldn't say they didn't intend for that growth. They did intend for some kind of growth because a media
yeah,
company called Liberty takes over from Bernie Ecclestone in 2017. And I know the
mm,
team that kind of delivered it very well. Ellie Norman, who was the chief marketing officer at the time, or managing director for marketing. I know Ellie very well. I also know Sean Bratches, who comes from ESPN and was the chief commercial officer when, who did we have as their CEO at the time? Chase, whoever his name
okay, yeah,
was.
Chase, yeah,
Whatever his last name was. I completely forget.
yeah,
Uh,
Chase Carey.
with Ross Braun, Sean Bratches, and these three guys were running it. And Sean
Chase
Bratches
Carey.
comes from an ESPN background. And so this is what he's used to doing, right? Making stories out of sports athletes. So he immediately comes
Yeah,
in with that brain. And he was also behind the Live Golf's growth after F1.
yeah,
So Sean has a history of running that playbook in multiple sports and being very successful at it. So I do know that that was very intentional that they came with it, but they didn't, I think, anticipate the kind of growth that would come because they knew it
yeah,
was a dying sport. They knew they had to do something about it.
yeah,
And that happened. Now, and since then, tennis has run that play, golf has run that
Yeah.
play. Everybody has
Yeah.
run that play, and
Everyone, rugby.
it doesn't become exactly the same thing because you can't replicate the rest of the conditions with it,
Yeah.
right? Because those conditions aren't happening. So I think Drive to Survive also worked inherently because I don't have a better term for it, but F1 is an incestuous sport. Everybody's going from one team to the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about the news about Mercedes, now Ferrari poaching Jerome D'Ambrosio or
Yeah.
Loic Serra from Mercedes, even the news of like, where would Adrian Newey go? Like, if it's a different sport,
Yeah.
people are probably like, maybe he won't go anywhere. Maybe he'll sit at home. But people really, just because the talent is so specialized,
Yeah.
people, and I wrote an article about this last year sometime, which was about how F1 really operates like a music concert production company, right? They go from one
Yeah.
track to the other, they'll pack up and everything will go and the show will get put out again, right? And
Yeah.
so
Traveling
that
circus.
kind of, it's a traveling circus. And people
Yeah.
really need to have that kind of tenacity. You can't just pull somebody from outside the circle because who else is going to want to do like 25 weeks in the year not at your home? Those are special kind of
Yeah.
people who want to be able to do that. You ask me to do that, I
100%.
will never be doing that in my life. So with all of that combined, no, never say never, but at the
Never
end
say
of the
never. It
day,
depends.
it depends, for the right job, maybe. But at the end of the day, I think that it's a very interesting growth trajectory we've had, but we have to focus on newer kinds of storytelling. We cannot be in, I'm really glad what Box to Box did for the sport. But if you have the same storyteller, run the same playbook for say
Yeah.
every sport, you're not going to
Yeah.
see diversity. Like that's the business case for diversity, right? If you don't have
Yeah.
different perspectives, tell different stories, you're going to get the same story with a different sticker on top. So for Drive to
Yeah.
Survive, I think Drive to Survive should have been retired a season ago. I think the era for that is over. And
Yeah.
I think every sport right now is struggling with this, right? How do we do more authentic, organic storytelling? Because people do want more exclusive content. That hasn't
Yeah.
gone at all away. People want to go even one level deeper. That's why we see all these like fan accounts that are tracking now all the dogs of these drivers' moves. Like people love the
Yeah.
dogs that Lewis has and now Charles has. Like we've got dogs having a whole personality. People just really want to know what's going on. And that's happening in every sport. So what's that organic form of storytelling? I don't know yet. I think as somebody who's pivoting as a tech founder this year, I would think it's tech.
Yeah.
There's a lot more ways to do organic and faster content generation. But I don't think we have the same exact playbook figured out yet unless we change the storytellers. The same storytellers telling the same story season after season is not going to work. But I did think that last season was much better. Last season was much better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know for sure. F1 having that funnel of DTS into fandom, into hold card cash, whether that came from tickets, merch, etc. I guess what is the future then for F1 if they can't do DTS? And if they can't, and you're saying maybe it should have ended. What's the future of creating that funnel for F1 and for F1 teams where they're able to get obviously they've got these, and I guess getting new fans, also maintaining the fans and keeping them entertained, but also keeping them in a way where, obviously, look, they're not in this for fun. This is sport entertainment. It's also sports business. Yeah. They want to sell us merch. They want to sell us tickets. They want to sell us this, that, and the other. What's the future of that?
I think it goes back to what you said, sports business, right? And
yeah,
it is understanding your product strategy. I think we've gone on creating such a great offline product. I would say F1 has thrown it out of the park when it comes to the offline, this festival-like experience that comes to your town, that they've thrown it out of the park. And now that you've gotten these many fans, I think we went from, as a sport, 500 million fans globally to 1.5 billion. Do we need as many more fans to come watch the sport? Not necessarily. We need to be able to keep them now. How do we keep them?
Yeah.
And it comes back to the on-track product more. And maybe it is Drive to Survive, or maybe it's a different show. The show ends because a lot of people do watch it for everything that happens off track and on the cameras. I've got coworkers who are like, oh my God, F1 is on this weekend. And I was like, it came back. Isn't it coming next week? And what he meant was Drive to Survive is on this weekend. And there are fans who've come to the sport who really just enjoy for that entertainment, online entertainment factor. So coming out and understanding who your audience is and what you're selling to them and why you're selling to them. And you have to start looking into what that next generation of fan engagement is. It's going back to a lot more live community-based work. If you see, F1 did sign a deal with this Brazilian-based company called Globant to do some kind of fan engagement platform soon. You know what Alex Albon's doing with the company Fan Capital that came out of Williams Racing, same Duralton Capital. And it's like, hey, more content, but also, hey, buy my merch. And I don't know, Alex, what to tell you if Alex is listening to this. Alex, I don't have time to read your thoughts, 5 different articles about you every week. I'm sorry. The casual fan does not have time for that. I'm sorry. And I'm a hardcore, diehard fan. I still don't have time for this. So how can you communicate what your value set is, what you're trying to, if your value is joy, fun, entertainment, what are you doing to make the on-track every week product as entertaining is equally as important.
Yeah.
It's equally as important. I think sprint weekends this year have actually worked for us. They're finally figured out the sprint product, right? It's a product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so your online racing product, making sure it's not necessarily, maybe it's just going back to basics in my head. In my head, go back to basics. Be able to, and I would never I don't understand the complexity of half of these things that they're doing, right? Even though I know the wonderful folks who are working behind the scenes, I don't understand each part of the complexity behind the scene. And it's going back and focusing on the basic. I do know F1 has some very big plans for next year that I'm not allowed to say yet. But I've heard rumblings that something is coming. And I have no clue, by the way, on what that will entail.
What that is.
A huge marketing campaign is coming for next year.
Okay.
So people are heads down. People are working really, really hard. Coming back from Miami, meeting people all across the paddock. People are heads down already planning for 2025. So I would say, as fans also, it's hard to sometimes be like, well, I'm watching right now and I need this to be interesting. And sometimes organizations are working 12 months in advance and they've already, well, this year is a wash. Let's go and do something next year instead. But I think going back to basics is important. And as fans, somebody who's a diehard fan and somebody who's worked in the world of automotive and now has worked in and around sports for the last 4 years, I would say I'm no better than any of your fan that's listening to this podcast, and neither is any of the officials we see in terms of mental
Yeah.
capacity. Their mental capacity is probably, I think, fan created content, fan ideas are sometimes so much more superior for the reason because you've got
Mm.
passion and time to do. As somebody in my mid 30s now, I don't even have the energy, like I said, to go and do a 3-day race weekend. When I like started doing that at 24 years old, I could, my first ever like Indy 500 snake fit ticket was $60, right? So I started doing, I've done GA so many times in my life. I'm
Yeah.
like, I know what this product is. I don't need to go experience it every week. The racing, however, every year is different, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Of
coming
course.
back to what you said, maybe as much as we want entertainment, we've cracked that and you should keep your focus there. But like F1 as an organization, I'm not talking the promoters, I'm not talking the marketing side. F1 as an organization, if it can spend a little bit of its focus, and I'm sure there are people already doing that from a sporting aspect because you've
Yeah.
got now the whatever the Tottenham karting experiences. People feel like that
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
part of it now. And I think the next part of
Yeah.
sports is folks want to participate, not spectate anymore. That
Yeah.
is the next generation
I,
of sports.
look, I think that's look. You look at that. You look at the F1 arcades that are springing up. We've got one here. Obviously, I think there's one in
Boston now,
Boston
and
that
I think
opened
there's
up.
more coming.
Yeah, there's more coming. And look, the one in London is and DC. Thank you very much, Tash. So I think looking at the one in London, it seems to have been a success, and I think they've partnered. I've gone there for fan led events as well, and I know, I've been invited for a few PR things there, but I know people who have just gone just because, they just want to go check out the F1 arcade, and you've got, high level arcade games where you have the sim essentially, and you're playing F1 23, F1 24. I think that's great, but I think you're right. Look, the biggest marketer for F1 outside of Drive to Survive, like in season, was Max versus Lewis, a story for the ages, something which I had people coming up to me like, Nash, have you seen the F1? Have you seen what's happening with Max and Lewis? Like, it was such a big story because the racing was something we hadn't seen. It was a rivalry that we hadn't seen probably since Prost Senna. So, a whole couple of generations of people hadn't experienced this. Two drivers, two different teams going hammer and tongs at it like that. Every race, something was happening. The interest and the social, and really organically, because of all the social media content that fans were making out of it, and obviously teams were making out of it, and whatever, that just created so much. I think you're right. I think some people, I think that's a problem. Like you say, we don't know F1's plans. So when we see F1 doing races in Vegas, Miami, having all this glitz and glamour, and people say, well, they're prioritizing the entertainment over the sport. The sport should be the priority. And obviously, look, we have regulation changes coming up, and they did tweak with the sprint format. That has helped. But you're right. I think the better the racing product, the easier everything else
Exactly.
falls into
And
place
I
after
think
the content falls into place,
there
everything
is
else falls
one
into
thing
place.
before we kind of end this that I
Mm,
saw online when they did their acquisition of Dorna Sports for MotoGP recently. And people were
yeah,
like, look what Liberty did with a boring sport that nobody watched to a boring sport that everybody watches now.
yeah.
They you should give them that. And I'm like, you're kind of right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Because we do go through these
yeah,
cycles
yeah,
where
yeah,
like there's nothing happening and then suddenly a lot is happening at the end of a regulation
yeah,
cycle when everybody's kind of caught up. Right. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I
exactly.
do think on organic, like you said, fan led events, F1 arcade. And I noticed that also at Miami, right? A lot of people who go to races or anything, they don't necessarily are going with all fans. They're bringing a family member or friend who's never actually watched this before and is getting
Mm,
introduced to a family or friend. So more on these grassroots partnerships that the promoters can do, like go F1, go
Yeah.
to your promoter and have them give them a target that they need to do at least 5 fan-led contents or fan-led events in your city in a calendar year. Let's do that. Let's do and see what happens, because I think all sports needs to get off online and we need to get more in person, and people, like I said, don't want to spectate anymore, they want to participate. So how can you get people to
Oh no,
participate
100%.
more is where you get the next dollar, like you said, right? It's sports business
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And the next dollar, like the money that they get from ESPN is nowhere close to what they're making on track. And that's why, because they're
Yeah,
making,
of course.
like in the US, they're probably making a couple $100 million from these 3 races, but the entire year is only getting them $75 million from ESPN. So when you put that, and that's why they've put so much effort into the offline part of the sport. But
Yeah.
like you said, if you lose the online, nobody's going to want to do this.
No, 100%. And look, if little old us can go to America and go to Austin and do a fan-led podcast event, then surely F1 and other partners around that can do the same. So I think that's a great point for us to end it. I want to say thank you so much. Let me give you a lovely round of applause. Thank you for being a great guest. Oh my God, that's a lot of applause. Apologies, but well deserved, nevertheless.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
No,
having
no
me.
worries. No, that I could have gone on for hours on that, so we'll definitely get you back,
Anytime.
and maybe we'll see after the next kind of development, or whenever they announce the big marketing thing, maybe we'll get you back on and we'll be able to explain to us what that is. That would be awesome. Where can people find you? And is there anything that you'd like to kind of
people can find me, my first and last name, Abby Rakshit, on Instagram, and can follow our podcast platform, Racing Forces, on Instagram as well. One word. We do have a Twitter or X. We don't use it as much. It's called Racing_Forces. You can find our X, which is me not doing anything with it. But we've got a great team of women. We're a female-led creative house talking about the future of sports and business. Come find us on Racing Forces, but also you can find me on my personal account where I am ranting about a lot of news.
Yeah, no, I would highly recommend it. Please go and follow Abby. It's a great follow, and obviously go follow Racing Forces for great podcast content. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you guys for listening / watching. Remember, if you got this far, give us a like, subscribe, Spotify 5-star, Apple leave a rating, and obviously Patreon for the ad-free streams. We'll be back for Imola. So there'll be Imola post-qualifying podcast, and obviously the post-race podcast the following week. And remember, no matter what life throws at you, keep it on the black stuff. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Toodle pip.
Look, mate, if you've got this far, clearly you like what we do. So here's a link to subscribe to the Quickstop F1 family. Give that a click. And here's another link to some more cool on our channel. Sorry, cool stuff. And remember, no matter what happens, keep it on the black stuff. Click the stuff. Click the links. Click the links. Click the links. There. They're there.